Yesterday, a number of European leaders met at a European forum to discuss common kind of issues that they were facing. And this is just days after the American election, and they're wondering, hey, what's going to happen? Donald Trump is here, and Donald Trump is not generally a big fan of not a what he perceives as not a fair deal between it. So he's looking at the question of what do we need to do now? And I think he framed this spot on. This is right. Now, what he's saying, he's talking to a broader what Europeans need to do, but frame this in what they need to do relative to Ukraine and just hear it through that lens. And let's listen to what Macron had to say. Basically, I think that our role here is not to comment on the election of Donald Trump, and he will defend the interests of Americans. The question is, are we prepared to defend the interest of Europeans? That's the only question we have to answer. Now, that's spot on. He should be worried about the interest of the French and his neighbors. And that's correct. That's the way they need to be thinking about this. And I personally think that's our priority. And we shouldn't do this in a naive form of transatlanticism. Like, okay, transatlanticism, you want to get along across the Atlantic between America, Canada, and the European Union and play nice, but it's not a naive form of transatlanticism, nor by questioning our alliances. That's not going to help anything by saying, well, they're dropping the ball over there in the United States. No, he's saying we need to actually do it ourselves. And listen to this. This is great. Nor in a narrow-minded spirit of nationalism that would prevent us from taking up the challenge posed by China and the United States. Like, he's aware of what else is going on in the world. And so this is a decisive moment in history for us as Europeans. It really, truly is. The Europeans have been, to some degree, a little less involved than they should have been because they were able to kind of relax under the American umbrella. But now they're going to need to step up in a meaningful way. Basically, the question we have to answer is, do we want to read the history that is written by others? The wars launched by Vladimir Putin, the US elections, the technological and trade choices made by the Chinese. Or do we want to write our own history? That's right. You have autonomy. You can make your choices. Make your choices. Stand up and defend your own European space. That's a great thing. Now, I think that the United States should be helping Ukraine as well. But even if that policy shifted, Europe should be taking this challenge on itself. I personally believe that we have the strength to write it. Our economies are strong. Our countries have sophisticated defense systems, and we stand for something. The European Union has 440 million inhabitants in its 27 countries. That's more than the million than the United States has. Now, that's just within the EU. And the European political community has over 700 million inhabitants. That includes other countries like Britain that are not part of the EU. If we decide to become aware of what we represent, geopolitically and commercially, this makes us incredibly powerful. There's no market with 700 million inhabitants as united by history, interest, and values as we are around this table, no other. If we wake up and decide deep down not to despair geopolitically and not to be an adjustment market for other powers, economically and commercially. And so for me, this is the moment for us to decide we take action to defend our national and European interests, to believe in sovereignty and strategic autonomy, and basically to say that we don't just want to be customers, to be a market that's already taken, to actually delegate our economy and our technological choices and our security to others, but that we want to take full ownership of the issues of peace on our soil, of our prosperity, and our democratic model. For me, these are three challenges facing the European political community that we need to discuss together. What a great speech. Macron has really been interesting. And as I watch over the course of the war, I see that Boris Johnson was really the leader for European support in Ukraine at the very beginning of the war. And then it shifted, and in his defense, Olaf Scholz really stood up. Macron really stood up. Macron was like trying to make a peace deal with Putin to the very end of it was already too late, and Putin had already decided, but he was trying. But then Macron in the last year has really impressed me by how he stood up and just forthrightly supporting Ukraine. And he's spot on. Sikorsky is another figure that is really hawkish about this. The Baltic states are really saying this. And so now what I see here is Macron actually displacing Schultz perhaps as the kind of the continental leader in support of Ukraine. And I could be wrong. Tell me what you think about this. One way or another, this was a great speech, and this is the kind of thing that Europe needs to be. And this is the kind of thing that Europe needs to be both focused on and be willing to move towards. Okay, tell me what you thought about that. Put it in the comments below. Am I right? Am I wrong? What am I missing here? Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.